Hey guys, welcome to another episode on Chamba history. Before we jump into the book, I just want to give a quick shout out to Target with Manoj. He is a great historian slash YouTuber on YouTube. I was listening to his history on Chamba yesterday.
He delivers very well, very clearly through a dynastic timeline, like from king to king. And he pointed out a very pertinent fact that Dr. Mahesh Sharma just tucks into the appendix section, which is at the very end of his book. There was a king, Sahilla Verma, king of Chamba, who sacrificed his Queen Rani Suhi.
And she is commemorated by the good people of Chamba, especially the women and Gaddi women, very much into this ritual that they believe this goddess from a former sacrificed queen can grant them children in the case of difficult childbirths, etc., infertility, stuff like that. However, modern medicine is making inroads into these areas. Let us get back to Dr. Mahesh Sharma's book. I will jump to page 106 in this book because in between where I left off the begging bowl and this part about Manimahesh, the author just talks a little bit about alchemy and how it is a cross-cultural phenomenon and how certain Sufis were influencing Hindus, and he gives a genealogical chart of the yogis as well. Overall, it's a little bit dry. I want to get into like the sectarian rivalry real quick. So today we're going to just cover the Vaishnavism and Shaivism, competition. Manimahesha, the making of a Shaivite symbol. Even if the agency of Charpatnath was used to consolidate the post-15th century Chamba state, it was also felt that a popular symbol was required to integrate the diverse populations and beliefs. One reason was that Vaishnavism, the state religion, was largely perceived as an import. An indigenous symbol was therefore required. Charpat was a charismatic figure, but not a divine entity. What a bummer! Manimahesha, one of the appellations of Shiva, Om Namah Shivaya, therefore got prominence, also because of an overwhelming Shaivite constituency in all the segments of the state. In a way, the dichotomy between the official faith, as Vaishnavism was, and the popular faith in Shaivism was accepted. It became imperative for the state to uphold the faith of the people as well. Obviously, the state also took pains to integrate the three, Charpat, Vaishnava, and Shaiva, in some sort of interrelationship to create a larger spiritual constituency. If we read the Vamshavali closely, Charpat allegedly played a vital role in separating the spatial boundaries of the two dominant theological systems. Ramor became the land of Shiva, while Chamba the land of Lakshmi Narayana. In a way, in the personage of Charpat, the two opposite faiths were reconciled. Let us look briefly into the history of Shaivism in Chamba in order to realize the significance of the symbol of Manimahesha, the local innovation, perhaps a syncretistic fusion of the Tibetan and Shaivite tradition, which has received little scholarly attention. The creation of this symbol also helps us in comprehending the complex nature of the Charpati legend, which is located on the interstices of the Vajrayani and Nathatha yogic tradition, and how various symbols were integrated in his historical personage. According to the Nandi Bull inscription issued in 700 Common Era, the earliest Shiva temple was built by Meru Varman and the architect Guga on the top of Himavant, snow-clad mount, like unto Mount Meru. It has, however, been pointed out that the temple that exists today is not of the 8th century CE. Shocking! The present temple was rebuilt, perhaps at the same site, at a later date. Subhashini Aryan ascribes this reconstruction to Sahila or Yugakara Varman by the end of the first millennium CE. Lakshman Thakur, after comparing the wooden Lakshana temple and the present temple, both ascribed to Meru Varman, along with the stylistically similar temple of Narasimha, which was founded and patronized by Tribhuvan Rekha, the queen of Yugakara Varman, in the last half of the 10th century CE, so after 950, concludes that both are contemporaneous, built on the Vastu Shastra temple plans of 84 squares, probably in the 11th century. There is, however, another point of contention that has been addressed by very few. The temple, popularly known as Manimahesha, has not been called so in any of the Chamba inscriptions, Vamshavali, or the genealogy of the rulers. The earliest known reference to Manimahesha is a 1440 CE inscription issued 10th of Magh month, perhaps in 1507 VS, which itself is supposed to be of later origin than has been ascribed to, in which the seal at the beginning of the inscription starts with an homage to Sri Manimahesha. This epigraph was issued to commemorate the assistance rendered in danger by Maharaja Bhota Varman by providing rupees 123 per annum along with 15 and a half lahris of land in village Saroga and 2 lahris in village Guda to one Atala as a religious gift. It is, however, significant to observe that not only there is no contemporary epigraph proclaiming the worship of Manimahesha in Chamba around this time, there is, in fact, no other temple dedicated to Manimahesha in the entire Indian subcontinent. In fact, the appellation Manimahesha does not figure in any Shaivite stotras. In the quest to locate big symbols, archaeological or textual, the obvious connective with the small is, however, ignored. What is not recognized today is the fact that the only known place of worship in Manimahesha is the small shrine housed in the courtyard of the portal of Charpatnath in Chamba. This nondescript 8 feet square shrine is built in a traditional hill style, with the sanctum containing the phallic representation of Shiva. This icon, which is worshipped today, is a 2-piece stone. The Yoni Pita, which is not finely hewn and may be dated to about the 17th century, and the black glossy lingama, which is rather of recent origin. Inside the shrine are kept the lingamas that are not in use. The one with eyes and mouth that is representative of a typical Western Himalayan pindi or iconic stone with huge coal-lined eyes, symbol of life, placed on it. One can also see some other idols placed in the niche inside the sanctum. Prominent among them is the 3 feet high statue of goddess, chiseled in black stone. It is Kali. Om Klim Klim Kali Kaye Namo Namaha. The black-colored goddess. The colored black symbolically suggested that she ingests everything. There are few visitors to this shrine, though, which functions as the private portal of the Jogis of Charpat. By the way, have you guys checked out the New York local news? Some Hasidic Jew Bhais, like Guru Bhais, built a secret tunnel connecting their temple to the main street. And they got busted by the NYPD, and it was all over the news, and they were so upset, so it was great footage for all those who wanted to see a good drama. Shout out to the Hasidic Jews. Okay. Private portal of the Jogis of Charpat. The non-mention of Manimahesha, only 2 of the 140 published inscriptions in the Antiquities of Chamba, is significant also because it is the primary deity, the most worshipped of the Chamba deities of Chamba. Shiva perhaps became Manimahesha later. The only known land grant that was made to Manimahesha is the 1618 grant provided to 4 Kakara Khatris, merchants, for establishing a Sadavrata alms institution to the pilgrims in honor of Manimahesha at village Datta Hilsar. Footnote 56. There's a plate. Okay. Manimahesha is also called as Maharudra Manimahesha. Jayrudra. The epithet Maharudra, though indicative of the ascetic traditions, is not uncommon and was ascribed, among others, to Chandrasekhara, the deity of Sahu. By 1760, some sort of hierarchy and accommodation had been achieved, made imperative by the fact that Shaivism was a major belief in all the western Himalayan states, particularly Jammu and Kashmir. This point is made abundantly clear in the charter issued by Raj Singh to Fatehpal Singh of Bhadarwah, reminding him that the patronage should be extended to uphold the Dharma of Lakshmi Narayanaji, that of Sri Manimaheshaji, and that of Sri Vasukinagaji. You should not shame either Chamba or Bhadarwah, being of one house tied as they are in one cord. Chamba shall manage its affairs on its side of the boundary and shall be representative and will nurture the Dharma at its best. This is quoted on page 111, and today we are on, according to some, it is a portal. We are on January 11th. Of greater significance than the shrine was the annual pilgrimage to Manimahesha. The objective of this pilgrimage, that takes place in the summers, was to take a dip in the glacial lake, the Manimahesha Dala, in the Budal Valley, about 34 kilometers from Barmore Township, the ancient capital Brahmapura. The lake lies in the glacial depression, which is fed by the surrounding snow-clad slopes at the elevation about 4,200 meters, which makes it 13,500 feet, overlooked by Mount Kailash, which is 5,500 meters, which people believe is the abode of Shiva. The annual sacrifice ritual after the dip in summer, when they cross the area on their way to Lahore using the treacherous Kukti Pass, was popular among the Gaddis. We meet again the shepherds. The Gaddis are the transhuman shepherds of Brahmore, who are devout Shaivites. They worship Shiva in his local form as Dudu, perhaps derived from the Sanskrit Durajati, the one who is smeared in ash, Shiva. They offer Nawala to Shiva, a ceremonial ritual commemorating the coming of Shaivism in Brahmore. In Chapter 1, we wondered if the royal Chamba lineage commenced from this clan and subsequently Sanskritized itself. In the symbol of the pilgrim's dip in the lake of Manimahesha, a theology of royal lineage, the dominant Shaiva symbol, and the faith of local people are fused to create a larger symbol. The legends of Shiva, popular among the Gaddis, is a pointer to the propitiation of a local Lokapala, literally the protector of the people. Lokapala, as Ishana is the Salhi fountain stone inscription, the protective deity of the lake, like Yakshas. At some point of time, this protective deity was called Manimahesha and was co-opted within the Shaivite theological system by the beginning of the 15th century. This deity was, over a period, Sanskritized and nationalized, first within Chamba, then outside the region, by the myth-making process. Thus, Shiva manifests himself to a shepherd near the lake, which becomes the symbol, and the entire place his sanctuary. Shiva meets a local shepherd who becomes his porter, carrying his salt sack for 6 months. That's a long time. The god later manifests himself as Trilochana Mahadeva, the one who has 3 eyes. There are also a lot of songs about this. I love it. The universalization of the symbol continues. The pilgrimage Jatra was declared as a state-level fair by the Himachal Pradesh government in 1999. This is reflected in the increased pilgrim base, since the pilgrimage is popular now in entire northern India, from 30,000 in 1998 to 100,000 in 2006, which makes it one of the largest pilgrim routes in the Himalayas. This is phenomenal considering that it was not known beyond Chamba and Kangra in the 1960s. The process of Sanskritization still continues. Even as I write, the 2007 Manimahesha pilgrimage has just started. It is interesting to read the report filed in the largest North Indian newspaper. The pilgrims and devotees of Lord Shiva will take their holy dip in Manimahesha Lake at the altitude of 4,170 meters daily. There is a small image of God Shiva on the margin of small Manimahesha Lake called Chaumukha, four-headed Shiva image, and not a lingama. Local tribal Barmor MLA Thakur Singh Barmori, who is also the chairman of the state-level Manimahesha Pilgrimage Committee, said the holy chari of Manimahesha would commence from Chamba a week before the holy dip. The name Manimahesha itself is quizzical, perhaps indicative of the not Vajrayani Siddha and Pashupata Shaiva traditions. Let us now consider the Tibetan-Buddhist connection. The rocks in the upper reach of the Ravi Valley are dotted with the sacred Tibetan formula inscriptions Om Mani Padme Hum, as also noted by Fogel. At one time before 1200 Common Era, the region was under the Guga Empire that covered some areas in Kangra as well. The modern Bajnath was then known as Kiragrama, literally the settlement of the Kiras, the people of Tibetan Ladakhi extraction. It is not incidental that the former territories associated with the Kiras became Shaivite places. Bajnath also houses a prominent Shiva temple built and endowed in 1204 Common Era. One of the temples is the Siddhanath temple, the other called Bajnath. From the testimony of Rajata Rangini, it is clear that the Kiras were defeated by the alliance of Chamba, Kashmir, and Dards during the reign of Jasata towards the end of the 12th century. He also acquired the Pangi Custom House, which was a meeting ground for Yarkand, Lahuli, and Kashmiri traders. Significantly, Frank mentions that the Maitreya Buddha sculptures were known as Chamba by the villagers of Mulbe and Dras, both in the Ladakh Valley where Buddhism is still prominent. We may observe that Maitreya being called Chamba is not incidental, as the words Chamba literally means the Brahmanic deity Brahma, to whom Maitreya is associated with, just as Avalokiteshvara with Shiva is also the deity after whom the early Chamba kingdom Brahmapura was named. Okay. The association of Maitreya and Chamba, therefore, is significant to understand the mechanism by which both the traditions impregnated into each other's bodies and were generally accepted in their hybrid form, without locating the individual traits. Same is the case with the Trilokanath temple. Trilokanath temple, 3 eyes, in Udaipur in Chamba Lahore, now contested as Avalokita or Triloki. More interesting is the example of Manjushri, who is akin to Kartikeya, with a peacock as his symbol, which is the Vahana vehicle of Kartikeya. One is conscious of the fact that the Tibetan Mahasiddha influence in the making of the Manimahesha symbol, for the want of better evidence, is, however, tenuous. The inference that one is trying to draw is that the prefix Mani is a later addition, perhaps impregnated by the Tibetan influence. The sacred formula, Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme. This is me. He didn't write it in this page. Let us consider this from another perspective. The lakes and mounts are ubiquitous to the Himalayan topography and are associated with Shiva and Goddess. Most of the names are similar or interchangeable among Tibetan Buddhism. The popular religious practices, Bonpa, or popular Hinduism, and Natsiddhas, with all three sharing similar cultural sensibilities. Therefore, one does find more than one Mount Kailasha, just as Frank discovered in the 1650 inscription. A lake Manasarovara, fed by Kailasha, was the abode of Naga Magros. This myth is similar to that associating Manimahesha and Kailung Naga. Kailung Naga, the serpent deity, later on is co-opted within the Shaivite theological system as the wazir deputy of Manimahesha. On crossing the pass, the Gaddis sacrifice a he-goat to the serpent deity. During the pilgrimage, Manimahesha is similarly propitiated. This does not come as a surprise. These lakes and the mountain passes were the abodes of the Yakshasas and Yakshanis, who were the protective deities. These protective deities demanded sacrifice. The Buddhists heaped stones along these mountains and lake passes, called Manisarum, for protection.